back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be a little different than what you might expect because I am obviously recording this as audio, and so you are going to see this beautiful painting being made, or I think it's beautiful because I made it, as I'm talking. And I think this might be how I do all of my monthly wrap-up videos, is to include some of my art. So, to get started, first, this is going to be my January book wrap-up video, and this painting that I am currently working on is a painting that is inspired by my favorite book for the month of January. So we'll see if you can guess what that book is as I'm painting before I get to the end of this video. So in January, I read 6 books. 5 books. 5. I only read 5. One of them was an audiobook, and the other 4 were novels. So first up, I read Conjure Women, and Conjure Women is by Afia Atakora. Hopefully I said that correctly. And this book follows, how do I describe this? There's so much stuff happens in this book. So this book is set between the time of slavery and emancipation. And it follows Miss Maybelle and her daughter. Her daughter's name is Rue, and Rue is our main protagonist in this. And I don't want to give away too many details of it because it is an amazing book and it's beautiful, and you should watch it. You should read this book or listen to it. So it talks about the power of secrets that happen within womanly friendships, secrets that just happen throughout generations and span through time. And then also there's a discussion of conjure, and I have really been exploring and wanting to learn more about ancestral rites of passage and ancestral spirituality. So I really enjoyed this book, and I actually thought that this would end up being my favorite book of January, but I was wrong. So I gave Conjure Women 4 stars, and yeah, I think that's it that I want to say about it. I'm trying to think. Was there anything? All right, let's look at my see what notes I left for myself on Goodreads, and I might not have left any because it was like this really powerful quote that I enjoy, and it was like early on in the book, and I'll just share that. And it's, hoodoo is black folks' currency. The thing about curses is that you can know who you've wronged the most by who you fear has the notion to curse you. And I just thought that was so powerful because so many times people will think that, like, to me it was like people think that like all these other folks are out to get them. And it's really like, you know what, maybe though you think that because like you've wronged that person in some way. So like, why do you think everyone's out to get you? Like, are you being shady? What's going on? So yeah, so that was the first book that I finished in 2021. Second book was The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Disha Philia. And I actually read this book with one of my friends who's also a blogger, and I might shout her out later. But so I read this book with her, and wanted to read it because we both grew up very churched. I grew up Pentecostal, and so I was really interested to see kind of where this story would lead. And this is a shorter story, so it was a novella. And actually, I'm just gonna read. Let's see, should I just read my review of it? Because I actually gave it an actual written review. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So what I really liked was that there were so many different characters. And so it's like there are 9 stories in this short novella collection. that of, I want to say 9 different women, because I don't think it was 9 different women, but it covers kind of like the secrets that you hide from your family, or even your friends, while you're in church and when you're doing things that people might feel are sinful in some way. So yeah, but my review of this, because I gave this book 3 stars, and so my review of this was, I really liked the premise of this book, but it ended up letting me down in the end. Most of the stories included didn't seem like secrets of church women, as there was no true connection to the church. They're just secret lives that women sometimes live when they're not accepted in mainstream society. This book definitely had potential to be more, but the editor dropped the ball in pushing the author to make deeper connections to the church, or even connecting the different cast of characters. Yeah, that seems kind of not nice to say out loud, but those are my thoughts. So I did have a few notes when I was reading. I'll share this quote from it. Is it better to have the one big hurt of your father not being around, and not all those little hurts that comes when he disappoints you? Or is it better to have a piece of a father, hurts and all? So I thought that was very powerful. All right, so let's get back. Let's see. My third book for January was The Deep by River Solomon. And I was so excited to read this book. And then I felt kind of let down in the end. That's really, yeah. So The Deep, if you haven't heard about this book, the premise is that there are not lives, I want to say like civilians, or what am I trying to say here? Oh, so the premise is that there are mermaids who live underwater, obviously, but that mermaids are the descendants of enslaved of women who were cast off of slave boats who were pregnant before they, like, through the Middle Passage. So before they made their way to America, they were killed by throwing them overboard. So, which was like just horrific to think of. And so these babies were born into the water, and they become mermaids, and then they reproduce, and so on and so on. But it really, like, the powerful parts of it for me were the focus to ancestral memory, and how important it is, and how, like, your body can hold the pain of memories throughout generations. And I thought that was so powerful. The reason why I felt a little let down by this book, one, was because it was a novella, so I didn't feel like the author really had enough space. Like, I really wanted this to be a full novel. But it started kind of slow, and so by the time the book begins to wrap up, or the book is wrapping up, it's like, wait, no. Like, this is not the end of it, because there are so many things that aren't tied up. And I don't know. I kind of wanted more. I wanted more. I'm trying to think of how to say this without giving spoilers, but I wanted more about this connection between the mermaids and then what they call two-legged people who walk. I wanted to see what that could either have progressed into, or even hear from them, like, what had they been told about mermaids? Did they even know that mermaids existed, or anything like that? So yeah. So in all, I gave The Deep 3 stars. But I do love the author's writing, and so I'm interested. I'm going to see if they have any other books out, or if they're planning to write something else. Next up is the autobiography of Malcolm X. I listened to this on Audible. Lawrence Fishburne narrated it. This is not my first time reading the autobiography of Malcolm X. I read it, I don't even know how long ago. Oh my gosh. Probably when I was in undergrad. And I remember having, like, this very, like, it was one of the books that is always listed when people are like, what's a book that, like, really changed you in some way? It's all, like, I always put the autobiography of Malcolm X. But then I realized I have not revisited this book in so long. And so I decided to revisit it. And I ended up disappointed because this image that I had made of Malcolm X in my head is not like, I don't know how I like erased all the misogyny that was Malcolm X or was in him. And it wasn't until I got to the end of his autobiography that I was like, oh yeah, that right there is like what changed me in some way. And so pretty much the autobiography of Malcolm X is telling his story to Alex Haley. He felt like he was going to die and he wanted his story to be on paper. And it was really powerful. And I've always, for me, the end portions are the most powerful because you get to see this transition and you get to see what happens when someone has believed and dedicated themselves to this idea for so long and so many years and been faithful and all of this. And then to watch them as they change and are uprooted in some way, and realize that maybe they had faith in the wrong person or the wrong ideas or the wrong ideology. And while it was hard and painful to hear like what Malcolm X thought about women in some portions of his autobiography, or even just like the way that he treated some women in his life, like that was painful, but I did appreciate his honesty, because we always want people to be more honest in the world. But what I thought was really good and really thoughtful is if we, particularly me, because I do social justice work, and something that we always talk about is this idea of cancel culture and how detrimental it can be, or how like we don't give people a chance to change. We don't give people a chance to grow. And as you're listening to this autobiography, you can hear and see these changes that Malcolm is making. And I just remember getting to the end and being like, oh gosh, like I know, like, duh, I know my history. I'm from Detroit. So like I grew up and learned about Malcolm X from a smaller, point perspective in schools. But like, I know that he's going to die before, at the end of the book. I know that that's how the book is going to end. And still it was like, no, because he had so much potential, and it felt like he was growing and changing to somebody who was going to be an amazing leader. And so, that was like hard for me. And it was really hard for me as an activist to think about how you can change and grow throughout your learning process, but you might not get to live out those changes. You might not get to completely finish your mission in some ways, or to think that, hey, maybe that was part of his mission. So that was hard for me. Yeah, and I gave that 4 stars. All right. So lastly is my number 1 book for January, and that was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Is that how you say his name? Haig. I think Haig. Okay. So first off, I'm going to say that there are trigger warnings in this particular book for suicidal ideation, suicide, drug use. Am I covering them all? Depression, anxiety, death of family. Yeah. So if you are not in a mental space to read this novel right away, I would not start it. I just give myself some time. But this is, so I gave The Midnight Library 5 stars. And I'm like struggling with where to start, because for me, this was a very powerful novel. Like, so I bought the novel on ebook, on Kindle, because I've been trying to cut down on how many books I purchased. I bought it on Kindle, and I immediately, when I finished it, I purchased it in hardcover. Y'all know hardcover books are not cheap. Purchased it in hardcover because I felt like I needed to go back and read it and highlight and mark and just have this as a book on my shelf to revisit over and over again. It was just so much wonderful, just, oh my gosh. So obviously the painting that I'm working on, or that I have been working on throughout this me talking, is inspired by the Midnight Library. And so the thought process, or, sorry, what am I saying? Okay, so the Midnight Library starts off as this concept that between life and death, there is a library. And within that library, the shelves go on forever. I'm reading this from Goodreads. Every book provides a chance to try another life you could have lived, to see how things would be if you had made other choices. Would you have done anything different if you had the chance to undo your regrets? And the main character's name is Nora Seed, and she finds herself pretty much able to pick and choose, her biggest regrets. So think if one of your biggest regrets in life was like, oh, I should have moved to New Orleans when I had a chance. And she can pick the librarian who's there hands her that book of what her life would have been like if she had decided to go to New Orleans whenever and move there. And then she gets to live out like what her life would have been like. And it was just such a powerful book, not because you get these like do-overs, so to speak, but because it just reminds you to just be so grateful for, in some ways, it reminds you to be grateful for the life that you currently have. And so to see the beauty in that life, because I'm trying not to spoil the ending of this book. So because you can live, these regrets and still realize that that's not the life you wanted either. And so for me, like, while I was reading this, I was just like, wow, like, imagine like this realm between life and death, and you are there, and they're like, hey, here's your book of regrets for your life. Like, this is what you regret. And you can be like, hey, I want to see what would have happened if I had not done that. And just to see the different ways that life would have been for Nora was powerful, but also just reminding me. So even though I'm new to YouTube, I'm not new to blogging, and to blogging as in writing. And people have seen me like grow and change. But when I first started being on social media for blogging purposes, I was like this new mom who was in the process of finishing her PhD, and like my life was like on a completely different trajectory. And I was like, wow, like what if I could see that book? Like what if I could open a book and be like, and read, what my life would be like if I hadn't gotten as involved with social media and social justice work and parenting and that, and like if I had just hunkered down and finished my PhD and went on to be a professor, like would I be happy in that life? But then it's also like, but just be happy in your life. Like this is the life that you chose, and well, I definitely chose that. And yeah, oh my gosh, I'm trying not to give anything away, so I'm like using examples from my own life. But y'all, this book was just so powerful. Like even reading it on Kindle, I highlighted like 18 different things. So I know that when I go back with my pen, I'm gonna like go crazy. Gosh, let's see. I'm gonna read some of the things that I highlighted. Every second of every day, we are entering a new universe, and we spend so much time wishing our lives were different, comparing ourselves to other people and to other versions of ourselves, when really most lives contain degrees of good and degrees of bad. Just y'all. What else? The game is never over until it is over. It isn't over if there is a single pawn still on the board. If one side is down to a pawn and a king, and the other side has every player, there is still a game. And even if you were a pawn, maybe we all are, then you should remember that a pawn is the most magical piece of it all. It might look small and ordinary, but it isn't, because a pawn is never just a pawn. A pawn is a queen in waiting. All you need to do is find a way to keep moving forward. one square after another, and you can get to the other side and unlock all kinds of power. Y'all. Oh my gosh. So like, another thing what I was thinking when I was reading it is that one thing that I have really been struggling with over the last year and a month or so is at the end of 2019, I found out that who I thought was my biological father my entire life was not. And I actually met my biological father and 4 of my 5 new siblings. I have a lot of siblings, y'all. So anyway, and I had like something I had really been struggling with was this idea of like, what if we had known who my real father was? Like, how would my childhood have been different? How would my adult life have been different? Like, what, like there's all these like what ifs in the world. And so reading this book at this time in my life, especially because right after I met them, COVID hit. And so like we haven't all been able to meet up again. And it's just been a lot of like what ifs, constantly these what ifs in my life or in my head. So yeah. What else? I'm trying to see what else I want to share from this. Y'all, this book is just so powerful. And I know that I'm going to definitely read it again this year. Or maybe it'll be a book that I just read every year in January. I'm like, let's just start the year off rereading this book and reminding myself, or when I'm just in a low place of like, what if, but just these reminders that every day is a chance to change your life in some way. And the other thing though, is I really appreciated how the author didn't shame, the reader for the protagonist. It didn't shame Nora for not wanting to live. And I think that is so important, that we do not shame people. As someone who suffers from anxiety and depression and has had suicidal ideation in my life, I found that so powerful that at no point in this book did the author write in any character that shamed where Nora was. It was like also this kind of option of like, you have this choice to no longer live. That is your choice. And this can be the end of your life if you want that, if this is where you want it to end. And I thought that was really, really powerful, because so often we shame people and we tell them that it can get better, and it, like we have no idea what they're going through or what they're experiencing. And I just thought that was such a powerful book. So January, best book I read in January. Pretty sure this book is going to be on my top books of 2020. Like, I mean, every book that I'm the way I'm trying to do this anyway is going to be whatever book was, my top book of the month is going to end up on my list. But hands down, the best book I read in 2021. Why do I keep saying I said 2020 so many times? I'm so sorry, y'all. The best book I read in 2021, The Midnight Library. Highly, highly recommend. 5 stars. We'll read it again. We'll gift it to people who need it. It is just such a powerful and amazing book, and I want all of you to read it. So that concludes my January wrap up. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment and tell me what's the best book you read in January. Also, have you read The Midnight Library? What do you think? Am I just being out there? Like, is it not the best book or what? Yeah. Okay. So I will see y'all in my next video. Bye.